Hey there and welcome to my channel. Today's tale is one that I've wanted to tell for a long time, but I kept putting it off because I was worried that I would do it an injustice. I don't know if I can ever do it full justice, but here goes nothing. In the hard winter of 1890, a story went around among the Lakota Sioux and other Plains tribes that the white soldiers were about to die, that their blood would flow like water and that the earth would be cleansed. But before the earth could be cleansed, the white soldiers would have to kill many Indians. This was not a prophecy anyone wanted to hear, but many believed it all the same. They believed it because they had heard this story from someone who had been there. He had seen the ghost dance and he had seen the future. His name was Wovoka, also known as Jack Wilson. Wovoka was a Paiute man, though he'd spend much of his life in Nevada with the northern Paiute tribe, then later with the Washoe tribe. He was born into a traditional culture, but he also spent much of his life working for the government at the Pyramid Lake Indian Reservation. It was during these years that he came to understand some of the ways of white people. He learned their language, he adopted their Christianity, becoming a lay preacher, and he learned about their technology, especially their firearms and ammunition. When he was 40 years old, while he was herding horses for the reservation, he experienced a vision or a dream. He wasn't exactly sure what had happened. One moment he was tending his horses, and the next he was in a meadow filled with blooming flowers and waving grasses and surrounded by beautiful dancing figures. They danced and sang, and they told him that the Great Spirit had sent him to lead them. They told him that he was the Messiah, and they told him that he was to teach them the ghost dance, a special dance that would drive out the settlers and bring back the buffalo and make the earth green and fruitful again. And most importantly, it would bring back the old-time life of the native peoples. And so Wovoka did just that. He taught them the dance and they danced. And as they danced, they called on the spirits of their ancestors, the ones who had died in the battles and those who had been forced onto reservations. And they hoped and prayed that the prophecy of Wovoka would come true. It was probably 3 years later when news of the ghost dance reached the whites. They weren't too concerned at first, but as more and more Native Americans were drawn into the movement, even up into Canada, the government began to worry. They didn't know whether the ghost dance was a new religion or a prelude to a new war. On December 29, 1890, the U.S. Indian Police found a group of about 150 Sioux gathered around a fire near the Little Big Horn River. There was a young man in the group who was dancing, and they knew that he was doing the ghost dance. This was not good. The U.S. Army had tried to stop the ghost dance before, and now they were going to try again. As the sun rose, the officers and their 24 soldiers approached the camp. As they got closer, they called out to the Indians, telling them to put down their weapons, but the Indians refused. In fact, they started dancing. The officers didn't want to wait any longer, so they shot and killed 2 of the Indians. The rest ran away. The wounded Indian pulled himself up onto his horse and rode off. He survived, but he would lose his sight. Later that day, the army returned to find that the camp was deserted. This was good, they thought, until they came across another ghost dance, this one much larger. This group was made up of about 350 Sioux, mostly women and children. The army set up a barricade, hoping to take the dancers into custody without violence, but the shots rang out anyway. This time, everyone danced toward the guns. As the smoke cleared, 166 Indians lay dead. Among them were many women and children. Only 6 soldiers were injured. Though the army had won this battle, soon they would learn that the ghost dance was unstoppable. They would never extinguish it. In the weeks that followed, the ghost dance grew even stronger. More and more Native Americans joined the movement. And although it was practiced all over the northern plains, perhaps nowhere was it more popular than at the Pine Ridge Reservation in South Dakota. Here lived Sitting Bull, famous for his leadership at the Battle of Little Big Horn. Now he was older, having grown a long white beard, but he still commanded respect. When Sitting Bull first heard about the ghost dance, he was skeptical. But after he had talked with some of the people who had attended the dance, he became convinced that it was the right way. He allowed the dancers to practice on his land and even participated himself. News of the massacre at Wounded Knee traveled quickly through the reservations. Some saw it as proof that the ghost dance worked. If the army killed the dancers, then they must be powerful. Others realized that the ghost dance was doomed. The US government would not allow it to live. Sitting Bull had become somewhat of a celebrity for the white folks, and they liked to show him off from time to time. They had promised him that if he went with them to Buffalo Bill's Wild West show, he would be treated like a celebrity. So in the winter of 1890, Sitting Bull agreed to go to Fort Robinson in Nebraska to meet up with Buffalo Bill's people. On the night of December, Sitting Bull and his 2 sons escaped their quarters and fled into the snow. They hid in the timber, but the next morning the soldiers found them and killed them. Both of Sitting Bull's sons were killed instantly. The soldiers shot Sitting Bull 5 times before he died. By this point, the ghost dance was practiced by thousands of Native Americans. Many of them were refugees, having fled the reservations. The army couldn't stop them all, but they kept trying. On December 29, 1890, they tracked down a large group of Mini-Conju Lakota to a place called Wounded Knee Creek. They told the Indians to drop their weapons and come out with their hands raised. When the Indians complied, the soldiers opened fire. There were nearly 350 Native Americans there, men, women, and children. Most of them were unarmed, but they were given no chance. The soldiers kept shooting until they were almost out of bullets. They killed 150 men, women, and children. Only 20 soldiers were injured. The shootings at Wounded Knee would be the last major incident involving the ghost dance, but there would be other conflicts between the US Army and Native Americans. For decades to come, these are just some of the stories about the ghost dance. There are others, many others. Not every tribe remembers it the same way. Some tribes see it as a peaceful religious movement that only wanted to bring back the good old days. Others see it as a desperate attempt to defend themselves against the United States Army. Still others see it as both. No matter how you remember it, the ghost dance remains a powerful symbol of resistance. It reminds us of the strength and courage of the Native Americans in the face of overwhelming odds. It also reminds us of the brutality and injustice of the United States government. We should remember the ghost dance because it teaches us about the history of our country. It also teaches us about ourselves. We should ask ourselves why the Native Americans danced the ghost dance and what we would do in their situation. I think we'll find that the answers will teach us a lot about ourselves and our world. That concludes today's tale. Did you enjoy it? Please let me know your thoughts below. Thanks so much for watching. See you next time.